or not 12th, whatever I put for the 7th. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the
Let's
right one.
see. Preparing to go live. Okay. This might actually work today because I only have one button.
Because I
Yay.
only have one button.
Yay.
That
Okay.
does generally make it easier.
Yeah, makes it
Somewhat.
easier. I'm going to check in on the phone first.
I am already there,
Okay.
and I'm still waiting on it to show up too, though.
All right. Because it showed up on the
There it is.
laptop, but
It's there.
okay. It's
Yay,
yay.
yay.
Yes, it is. We're live. What did I call this one? Oh yeah, I
Where'd
called
the Aurora go?
yeah, where'd the Aurora go?
And the slides show cold weather photography.
Yes. I called it where did the weather go or where did the Aurora go plus cold weather tips.
Okay, fair enough.
So yeah, I
It's
didn't like totally just call it that.
it's a little bit of everything. And yeah, it's not going to be very satisfying.
Yeah.
A little bit
So
of preview. We don't know where it went.
yeah, we don't know where it went. It's not here. It's gone. But yeah, we'll give it a couple of minutes since I didn't have time to
Yep.
start it prior, 15 minutes prior. But it looks like we have a couple of people here, so we'll say hello.
Hi,
Hi.
Heidi.
Hi. Oh yeah, and happy
Hi.
New Year to those that are joining because we didn't do a New Year's stream last week, but for multiple reasons. But figured we could take a week off. That's fine. So
I think we've been going every single week pretty much. I think
yeah,
it's
I mean we've had a
honestly,
pretty
other
good
than
run.
like you guys' international trips, really.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. We had to kind of do something there, but
But like,
oh, yeah,
yeah, we get a break.
pretty regular for
A
dealing with
random stream.
three different work schedules. So it's all good. So anyway, happy New Year, everybody, and I guess we'll just roll into it, so we're not doing too much here. So today we're going to discuss where did the Aurora go, because we had a Corona hole and a couple little CMEs, I think,
Little.
came through.
Good word.
Yeah, and we had some like I guess the gist is we had some favorable solar wind data, but nothing happened or nothing great happened. So there's a lot of theories rolling around as to why that is, and so we're going to roll into that, and then we'll talk about some cold weather tips and tricks for photography and being out in the cold because we are in January. Now, this doesn't, of course, our friends down under are in summer, so they don't have this problem.
Not
But
quite.
we'll start there. So anyway, I'll hand it over because I'll let Tanya drive because she's good at driving these slideshows.
The only thing I can drive.
Yeah, and then like Keith just he wrote, and behind clouds. Yes, we are in the cloudy season. So regardless of not seeing Aurora, it was cloudy anyway. So it was a good time for it to act silly.
Yes, I would agree. Although we have seen the same silly behavior before,
Yes.
and the weather was nice, so that was a bit disappointing. But okay, let's get through this. So, big update. We do have future Solar One, Swiffle L1 at this time.
Woo!
It's getting closer to its final orbit at L1. And I think the first light, meaning when the window of coronagraph will open, will be very soon, sometime in January. So we're anxiously waiting for this. So January 21st will be first light. So ah, this is
Close.
exciting.
Close.
Very close, very close. And April will probably be switch over to the data stream from ACE and Discover to um, Solar One. And this is
And it will
exciting
be
because really,
reliable.
well, I hope so. But this is the first dedicated space weather spacecraft, space weather monitor, because previous ones were really repurposed from scientific missions. And that's one of the reasons with like with coronagraphs, SOHO was never really designed to send images in real time. Now
Right.
It's just
we're
doing
we're gonna
such a
get
good
them.
job.
It's done amazing job. It needs a backup though.
Ace and Soho both, those old ones, they've just outdone
They've
themselves.
they've
Yep,
shockingly lasted a very long time. So can't
yep.
knock on
Nope.
Pretty resilient,
them.
which
Yeah.
is awesome. We love them, but we're ready for something new.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. Tired of being
So,
in the dark.
yep. Current events, we do have a kernel hole, negative polarity, although it doesn't really matter this time around because we're so close to solstice. So what matters it is transequatorial, so it definitely can drive some nice activity. Affects probably late January 8th, we might be starting to see the CIR, its returning kernel hole, and probably going to be basking in a fast solar wind from the 9th through 12th. So that's going to be a few days. And again, usually most of the activity happens as the CIR, that compressed region, arrives, but not to say that substorms are now possible during the actual fast solar wind itself. But that might be topic for the next stream, sort of work looking at what coronal holes are doing in terms of solar wind and when we can anticipate things, and we might have some interesting data to discuss by then. We are also looking at a couple of CMEs that launched from this region at the southern edge of the coronal hole and sort of behind coronal hole on the eastern side of it. Low-level C-class flares, and as expected, they were not directed toward us, at least not directly. And they might arrive as low confidence glancing blows or may not arrive at all because it's a low confidence glancing blow. It may be blended with CIR, so it may be a complex signature in solar wind, but again, we have to wait for L1 to see what solar wind actually drags in. And it's a cloud season for lots of places in North America and Europe. So I don't know how much we're going to see of this, if anything.
Right.
Was it enough that we had any Hux T models or WSA models come out for them?
Ah,
I didn't see any, but I might have missed.
it wasn't not very exciting.
Okay.
Very low probability in Huxt. I think we're looking at like 16%. I can pull
Oh,
it later
nah,
and take a
not
look
worth it.
because no. I am counting on Kernel Hole delivering something, not on those CMEs.
Yep.
Of course, things may change. It's only Tuesday, so who knows what this region is doing because I think it's trying to do something and it's trying to launch something. It's not super interesting, but it's interesting enough to flare. So we'll see.
Right.
Does anybody else think that Corona Hole looks a little bit like Italy?
Oh, a little bit, yeah. It's got
Or
Again,
at least Sicily at the bottom? I don't know. That's what I'm seeing. Like,
yeah,
a,
there's something to it. I
yeah.
probably should. I'll pull up the previous rotation for when the next stream. We'll compare, see what it looks like. But we had some interesting data and not so much interesting data at the same time. So
Yes.
this is the data over the last, just basically last day. So it's UT January 6th. And the day is over, thank God. But we had some favorable solar wind. It was BZ of -5 nanotesla, which is fairly decent. We should have seen at least something, right?
Hmm.
No.
Yeah.
Magnetosphere decided otherwise.
not even
And
Arctic stuff.
yeah, not, well, there was a little bit here, so
I
Little
saw
Alaska
a
bit.
few
probably saw
bands.
something. But overall, this was not the response that anybody anticipated, really. So,
So
why did
what
it
caused it?
happen? Or what
Yeah.
didn't happen? And I think we're not going to have a very satisfactory answer to this. And the reasons are multiple. So this was, if you remember the plot, the data had multiple error markings because mostly the density is fairly low, almost non-existent. So data itself is kind of messy, and it's possible that it's the instruments were not even reading it correctly. Calculation error is also possible. This is a very complex conversion going from one coordinate system into a different coordinate system. And sometimes errors happen, although that algorithm has been in place for very, very, very,
Long
very
time.
long time.
Yep.
So it's somewhat unlikely, um, but who knows? Maybe this was a special day. Solar wind, again, solar wind density and speed do play a minor role, mostly, at least the theory. They help to close the magnetotail, so they kind of push the lines together and they help substorm to happen. In addition, again, to BZ. So maybe they were not sufficient to kind of help the magnetotail to close and actually substorm. There was a idea that at least was entertained last year when we saw a very similar picture that something was there in the solar wind and then nothing happened. The idea of flux tubes. So we kept talking about solar wind being structured. There are small flux ropes in it, but there are also sort of flow tubes in it. They connect all the way to the sun's surface, and they are small, relatively speaking, to the solar wind and the space they have to take. But if you look at the Earth's magnetosphere, that's how they fit into one of those tubes. Those are fairly decent sized structures. And the solar wind inside one of those flux tube could be very different or slightly different compared to what we see in the next flux tube, because they map out to basically sun surface to the granules and very small cells that are making solar wind through magnetic reconnections. And each one of those cells is responsible for its own small flux tube. So if you have a spacecraft that's reading solar wind data that is outside sitting in a different flux tube over here, and Earth is affected by very different flow, you may see favorable data, but the magnetosphere is doing nothing because that's not the solar wind that's coming to Earth.
Right.
It's kind of very disappointing
Yeah.
because you really don't know if the wind at L1 will be ultimately affecting Earth. So it may look favorable, but may end up looking like nothing. So that's just one of the hypotheses. Also, solar wind evolves. It's still about 1 million miles to travel from L1 to Earth, and many things could happen to solar wind. It's really unusual for BZ to flip over into something positive from -5 nanotesla, but who knows? Um, Magnetosphere could be the state of the magnetosphere itself. We are in very close to solstice, so there is a strong tilt to it, and maybe you need slightly different data, slightly different type of solar wind to actually um, cause the substorm and actually magnetic field lines to close and create that substorm. Maybe Earth has been in a certain state of sort of preconditioning where the structure and the state of magnetosphere was not favorable for substorms. It's also possible, but there is really no way to say what is going on. You need monitoring devices pretty much throughout the entire magnetosphere to confirm that hypothesis, and so far it just stays a hypothesis. And my favorite, of course, unknown factors. There's something that didn't allow substorming to happen. If you want to select a few from the list and toss it out as your favorite hypotheses, by all means, go ahead and do that. But we really don't know.
Yeah,
Certainly,
Sometimes
have no way to
things
prove it.
just, yeah,
There's not really much you
sometimes,
can do.
no, not much you can do. If you see favorable solar wind, you still have to look at the magnetosphere response, and if it doesn't respond, well, that's how the night's going to go. Nope, it's not going to be Aurora, and you can look at the data all you want and you can forecast, but ultimately you still have to look at what the magnetosphere is doing.
And that goes to show you, as every time, that even the hard data we're getting from the satellites, yes, it's actual data being read from those locations, but it still may have no relevance to your Aurora searching journey. So even with good data, we may not be getting that stream of data or really any other number of answers, and you're still stuck not seeing anything. So there are no facts in this, only probabilities that add in different ways,
Yep,
which I know we kind of try to promote as much as possible, but
yep, exactly. And this is the location of the satellites, its current location. We say that they're at L1, they're actually not parked exactly at L1. It's not a stable point. They orbit L1 and data discrepancy. So satellites can be located on literally the opposite sides of each other across the L1 and have very high orbital separations. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of kilometers sometimes,
Right.
very
Yeah.
far apart.
Space is
Um,
big.
yeah, and L1 is not one single spot. So
No.
there's lots of space there, lots of space those satellites do cover as they orbit L1. And unfortunately for solar wind data, if that satellite is not really aligned with this is Sun, this is Earth. So if they are apart, farther apart from that line, then there is a chance that that solar wind is not coming to Earth at all. So what happens at L1 may stay at L1. It's just limits of our current detection. We don't have a satellite everywhere at L1, and we have no satellites that are closer to Earth to really know along that Sun-Earth line to know which solar wind is really coming to us.
We really need a
Um,
sun jammer, a satellite, a solar sail satellite, so we can get some maneuverability between L1 and Earth,
we do.
which was supposed
We
to
for
happen like
sure.
12 years ago, but whatever.
You
Yeah.
know,
I'm not still
Yeah.
salty about that.
not at all.
But good news for big storms that
Yeah, that's true.
larger structures, there's definitely more consistency in data. And even then you can tell like a difference sometimes just a few minutes between ACE and Discover, depending where they at in location, when they start to see the shock and when they start to see change in data. So there is still a little bit of a discrepancy, but large structures, they're not going to miss Earth. They're not going to miss, if they're seen at L1, they're going to come. So that is CME, that's corona holes. Um, they're very, very large structures in the solar wind, and they're coming. If L1 is speaking them, they're coming. For smaller structures, so we're talking about really structures in the slow solar wind that map out to smaller structures on the sun, you might see more discrepancy. So just be ready. It's a possibility, and I don't know whether or not we're still gonna get data from Discover and ACE when Solar One is operational, but with 3 satellites, you're gonna have 3 streams of data to choose from. Pick the one you like and just run with it. And it may not be the one that we ultimately going to see at Earth. And that's been the case with another satellite. So there is a purely scientific mission currently at L1 called WIND. So when all 3 of the spacecrafts are separated from each other, they read 3 different streams of data. Fun
As if it
times.
wasn't annoying enough to try to determine what to use.
We're going with Solar One. We're just going to stick with one. All right. So, yep, we don't have a clear answer as far as what happened, but there are quite a few possibilities. And ultimately, it's up to magnetosphere to decide what to do with the solar wind it's getting and what kind of solar wind it's getting.
Which tells you stack plots of magnetograms never lie. Magnetometers.
Yep. Well, they do
I know.
sometimes,
I was like,
but
don't
I guess
totally
even they
go
do
there.
technically. No one started a
but
microwave near them, first off.
or run over them with a lawnmower.
Yeah, that's
Usually
the
doesn't
worst one.
go well. But stack plots, I agree. Stack plots, if you it's easier to spot really rogue data with a stack plot. It's gonna be a very clear outlier. So yeah, I like stack plots for that reason. You can tell if magnetometers kind of have a life of its own and partying with I don't know, with a microwave, for example, or an MRI scanner. I don't know. All right. So that kind
Interesting
of covers,
relationship.
I think that kind of covers current events, and we're going to go into cold weather. We can start with cold weather safety, or we can go to cold weather photography. What do you
Well,
want to do, Mary Beth?
I mean, I guess we can go into the show and tell part of this and then go back to the
Yay!
slideshow.
Let's do it.
Okay. So we'll break it up from the slideshow. I actually brought some things to show because we are going to talk about layering in a couple of the slides. Because really it comes down to having a base layer, like this, which is like a merino wool type layer as your base. And then you can have like a thermal layer, like I usually go with down pants. And then I have a layer on top of that that's like the windbreaker, which I have here. These are my handy dandy snow pants that I take everywhere. But they're canvas lined because I was on a I was going through snow pants every year because it would never fail that I would get it caught on something and it would rip them.
Ooh,
And then I was duct taping them up. So these are canvas on the outside. So like Duluth Trading Company. So it's a lined work snow pant, but I really like those for I guess I just get too low and into things and not very careful. So for me that works. I don't have the down pants with me because that's really for the really cold temperatures, kind of like what they're seeing up in Fairbanks right now, like this minus 30 stuff, even like minus 20, and it's not that right here, so I don't need them. But my favorite gloves are these are made by the Heat Company, and where is it? Where is it? I'll bring it up to the screen. The Heat Company. But what's neat about them is let me just put it on here. So it's a mitten, but you can put a heat, like the little hand warmers in here, and you zip it up, and then you can unzip the mitten part, and then you have a liner on the glove, so you can operate your camera easier. Because you don't, when you're in the temperatures of like minus 20 or minus 30, you don't want your hand exposed, because you can get frostbite very quickly. Even though sometimes I get frustrated and I do it, and it sucks.
I
But
know that feeling.
what else I like about these, because it's got like little Velcro pieces
hmm,
here. Because I know me and Tanya were talking yesterday because she has gloves like this, but it doesn't seal the thumb, so it gets drafty. So this helps with that. And then you can now you got your
nice.
finger. So these are my favorite gloves. A lot of photographers use them for the cold weather stuff. And then of course you have wool socks too. That's what I always use. And then I have a couple different kinds of boots. These are those Sorel boots that are just kind of the when the temperatures aren't too cold, those ones work. For the real Arctic stuff, I have some Baffin boots because I find them to be a little bit better with the cold. But that is clothes. Oh, I do have a hat. So you always want like a wool hat or something to wear too. Um, as far as cameras go, so the biggest thing with cameras is batteries. For my Sony, it's usually pretty good until about minus 10. But minus 10, minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit, that's when the batteries really, really start to suffer on me. And I've had it where they just quit. Um, we were out shooting Aurora in Alaska, and it was like minus 36, I think, that night. And we had the cameras out. We're doing time lapses so that way we didn't have to touch them. But I noticed that it would stop shooting, and it wasn't out there that long. Bring the camera in the car, and as soon as the batteries got up to more of the you know car temperature, they came back. So they died at like 50%. And that's what I come with so the gist or the key here is just have a bunch of batteries on you. And then if you have them on you, put them inside jacket pocket. Like most of these coats will have inside pockets like this one does. It's a ski jacket. So you can put your batteries in here because you don't want the batteries to get cold because then it's going to defeat the purpose. And so you want to keep them somewhere warm. You can actually put more hand warmers in a pocket and put batteries in there, but you really just want to keep them warm. The actual mechanics of the camera itself does really well at really cold temperatures. I haven't had any issues with shutter or really anything on the camera at extended times out like minus 30 to minus 40 degrees. Um, it's just batteries. Now the LCD screens will get real weird. They kind of lag a little bit at those temperatures. And then the other thing you want to be careful with is touching anything that's been out in the cold for a while. And I've mistakenly done this, and it's like you burn your hand but from the cold. So make sure if you pick up your tripod or camera or anything that's been out for extended period of time in the cold, make sure you have your gloves on because it hurts. And I'm trying to think. The other thing with cameras, people have asked me is about heaters or hand warmers around the lens. If you do a lot of time lapses, I think that's helpful. I personally have never needed it because I just haven't had any issues with fogging up except under a couple circumstances. And some of this plays into how humid your environment is. Most of the time, when you're up in places like Alaska or even some of the mountains, it's a very dry cold. So I haven't had any issues with lenses fogging up. But I was shooting a waterfall one night. I was not super close to the waterfall, but then I started to have issues. And again, you have moisture in the air, so that's kind of makes sense. So if you want to put a little warmer around the lens, or if the cheap way to do it, take those hand warmers, put them on the side of the lens and rubber band it, and it does the same thing. But that's kind of the gist I have in the cold weather stuff. And unless there's any questions that people might have in the chat for me, I would love to answer them. Yeah, how do you wrap your camera? It's yeah, with the hand warmers you just use rubber bands or even hair ties, and you can just wrap it around there. But you can actually buy USB powered warmers on Amazon, and you can just wrap the lens body with that too. That's kind of the gist on that. But yeah, yeah, those mittens. Yeah, fleece lined leggings are good too. So, but I think that's the gist on that. Unless anybody has any questions, we can go back to the slideshow and go talk about the dangers of cold. Because there are some, and anybody doing photography workshops with any sort of teacher, instructor, you'll get, especially in the winter, you'll get a rundown on frostbite because it is a thing, and I've seen people have to be flown out and from these remote, like especially when you're up in places like Coldfoot, Alaska, where there's no medical up there really. You have to be flown down to Fairbanks. So you want to try to prevent frostbite at all costs. So we'll kind of get into that. I think it's in some of the slides, I think.
Yep. So, and it's not just frostbite, it's also hypothermia
Yes, yeah.
that gets to be dangerous. And we're talking about really extremes of temperatures. But what people don't realize is most hypothermia deaths actually happen between temperatures of 30 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit, not at the extremes. People just get careless, it's not that cold, and they go hiking for an extended period of time and they miscalculate just how warmly they are dressed and whether or not they're really dressed for the weather, including not just the temperature, but the humidity. And it gets to be a problem. It doesn't take that much of the wind to really get to very dangerous temperatures like -5 degrees Fahrenheit with 20 miles per hour wind gets
Mhm.
you wind chill of -30 degrees and wind chill at -25. Anything exposed, you can get a frostbite within about 15 minutes. So covering areas that are exposed and body may consider non-essential. So one of the responses is, again, you get the doctor talking about
Yes.
Aurora, and we talk about this is extremely important because blood supply to areas that are sort of expandable, like fingers, toes, nose, is very easy to cut off, and body will try to preserve core temperature because that's where your important organs are. And nose is something that's not going to be considered essential. You may miss it later, but
Yeah.
when body is conserving the heat to keep the heart warm, everything else becomes sort of secondary. So it's very easy to lose blood supply to cheeks, chin, fingers, toes, ears, and nose. They should really be covered. And if you want to keep them covered. And this is from infographic from CDC. So important things about frostbite and hypothermia. Frostbite is really more localized and pretty much tissue that's about frozen. It looks very different. Initially, it's going to look red, so you get the nice color to your cheeks, but it actually is not a good idea. That means you are starting to lose the regulation of the blood vessel tone, so it's concerning, and it's going to feel different to you too. It's going to feel like it's actually like a burn. But when you start to see the white or grayish yellow skin areas and skin that kind of feels firm or waxy and numb, that's the danger because that is a frostbite. And it's that tissue is extremely sensitive to injury. And I'll briefly mention things not to do when you're dealing with frostbite. But with hypothermia, initially it's shivering, exhaustion, confusion, um, memory loss, slurred speech, drowsiness. People can actually fall asleep and not wake up in hypothermia. It's even worse when clothing is wet. So when you suspect hypothermia, don't even think twice about bringing that person into a warm environment. Don't lose time. Don't try to sort of assess it. If you suspect that the person is not doing okay, get them out of the cold into warm area. Get the wet clothing off. Try to find out when the nearest medical help can happen. But cover them with blanket and you can try to warm up the core areas, so chest and belly if they're really, really cold, but try to avoid overheating. So it's actually better to cover them in lots of blankets than trying to heat them up and basically dunking them in the warm bath will not be a good idea, particularly if it's a really hot bath. Frostbitten area, warm to touch water and be very, very gentle because that tissue is extremely sensitive to just about any injury. So walking on frostbitten feet is a bad idea. That's making injury worse. Do not use sources of high heat. Try to warm it up faster because that often ends up with worse injury. Same goes for heating blankets or electric blankets or heating pads. It really is just water that is warm to touch because you're bringing it from really frostbitten. So 32 degrees temperature, you're trying to get them to body temperature. Don't try to do it too fast. And do not try to rub or massage it because you're going to make injury worse. So hopefully you don't have to do it and you don't have to treat it out in the field, but if you are planning to be out in extreme cold, definitely have a backup plan and definitely have a place to go that's warm and dry.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna add a couple more before I forget here. Is
yeah,
Janelle asked about face mask. Yeah, yeah, I have
yes, definitely.
one of those things where you just your eyes show, and there's a couple decent ones out there that actually has like breathing holes in here, and those are pretty good. Again, you can just get it on Amazon. I don't have anything really super fancy, but yeah, you'll want that for the extreme cold. And the idea behind layering, because I didn't go into hiking too much, but if you are doing physical activity like hiking, snowshoeing, skiing, things like that, um, a lot of times you're not wearing all the layers like you're like if you're standing and not doing anything like photography, because you will start to sweat. And as Tanya was saying, you don't want wet anything because that's going to make it worse. So and I've noticed this too, my sometimes like my feet will sweat like in the boots, and then all of a sudden it gets really cold and then you can't fix
Hmm.
that. So what you want to do is try to mitigate this. So even if you think you might be cold, like doing the physical activity, you'll be surprised how much body heat you actually generate doing snowshoeing and cross country skiing and stuff like that. So what I usually do is I pack a jacket. Actually, they have those puffy jackets. Those are the fun ones where they kind of fold up really small, and you can put it in your bag. So that way you can hike in with it. Um, And once you get to your place and you're stationary again, and when you start to get cold, then you can put that extra layer on. It can get kind of difficult sometimes if you're bringing the big parka with you. And I have, had to lug it, in places, but it's it's all about controlling that sweat so that way you don't have to, you're not dealing with wet clothes, because that's when it's a problem. So anyway, back to you.
Well,
I guess,
actually,
yeah, I
this is
guess this
yeah,
is
this is
my
kind of back
slide.
to layers. So if you
Yeah.
if you want to cover it, because
Yep.
you kind of talked about it,
Yeah, I
different
kind of talked
layers for
about it,
different
but
cold.
this is the kind of the nice little cartoon of it. So when it's chilly, yeah, you just got to kind of dress for the temperatures. You don't want to have so many layers on that you're sweating. So you want to in that, like, the extreme cold. So you want to kind of like, and it takes a little bit, like, you're figuring out what you're used to. Some people actually can tolerate cold a little bit more than others. Um, but you have your base layer, and then the thermal layer, and then your outer layer are the main layers. And then if it's really cold, like I've done 3+ layers before when we were out shooting in the -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, but typically it's those 3 layers. You have the wool, and then the feathers, and then the basically the outer shell to get for the wind. And yeah, and this little cartoon does a pretty good job of showing that.
Yep.
That's all I have,
And
unless
yep, have an extra layer with you just in case. But as Mary Beth already said, do not pack them on too tight. They need to have some air between them, and or at least in them. So
yes.
if you have a like a puffy jacket, but you are compressing it, that's going to lose some insulation right there, unfortunately. So
Yeah. That's why the feathers and stuff work so well, because it's like you actually have there's air in there, so that traps that air in there, and that actually is an insulating layer. So then you think about how, because I know everybody is always amazed that these animals can survive in these crazy temperatures for so long, and that's because, like, they naturally evolved these mechanisms that we're trying to emulate in our own clothing. So it's kind of cool when you think about it. Let's see some other tips that I forgot. Oh yeah, remotes. You can use a remote for your camera. I actually have a little. Do I have it with me? Hold on. A little remote. I'll show you what I do. Let me find it. Hang on.
While she's grabbing that, I can say for at least Canon users, the Canon mobile app has honestly been pretty good over the last 4 years that I've used to control your camera shutter with the phone. There's some weird bugs sometimes with it where the people have issues, but I've always been able to, like, let's say, set up a spare phone and put on the app and then put it on an intervalometer and just control my entire camera setup through the phone while I'm inside.
Yeah, that's become a thing. I'm starting to learn this Benro Polaris thing, and it's all controlled through a phone. So yeah, you could actually just leave your camera and rig out and sit in your car and just control it that way, which is
Super
probably
convenient. I
super
mean,
convenient. But
not only
anyway,
that, but then you can entertain yourself
yeah,
doing other things.
as long as you got signal. So I got this little remote for the Sony's, and what's I just actually just do this. So, like, you put your hand in the glove, and then you just hit the button in the glove. So that's one of many things I've devised over the years on how to deal with, controlling the camera. It just gets hard when you have to change settings, and you have to be real mindful and careful of that. And it's helped to have the gloves with liners. And I'm guilty of doing it, like, because the Sony buttons are pretty small, so I have taken the glove off to do quick changes. But then you got to immediately put your hand back in, because so that frostbite can get you in, like, not very long. Um, in 2020, the first winter trip that I took with Rachel and a couple friends up in Canada, we actually had a girl get frostbite on her finger because she was trying to
Oof.
operate her drone, and the drone's got the little controllers, and she needed to make an adjustment, so she took her glove off, and it was only off for 5 minutes maybe, and she ended up getting frost nip in her fingers where that she couldn't. It was very painful, She couldn't hold anything for a couple days.
Hmm.
So it took her out for a few days. It was really kind of, you know, it's disappointing, right? Because you get, it's like, oh, I can't do anything now because my, got
And the
frostbite
thing
on
is
them.
that gets those fingers, the
Mhm.
frostbitten tissue gets uh, sensitive
Yeah,
for a very long time. So with
yeah,
repeated exposure to cold, it's going to be very, very
it gets worse.
uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And it's just really heartbreaking to see how much damage people can sustain from frostbite. It is like Janelle commented absolutely correctly that it looks like a burn.
yeah,
So people can lose a lot to frostbite. So
yeah, and
whatever body can whatever tissue body can sort of um, drop off for the sake of keeping the core warm, it will do that. So fingers, toes, very easy. Blood vessels are really, really tiny, and they just don't stand a chance against extreme cold for a very long time.
yep. So, yeah, it's the unfortunate thing, but the good thing is we have really good clothing and technology now, so we can um, you know, withstand a lot of these temperatures. But you
Yep.
just got to be on it. Just got to, like I said, the eye-opening part to me was learning how to layer properly because prior to photography, I hated cold, hated everything about it, and because I was always uncomfortable. And then learned how to layer properly, and I was like, oh, this isn't so bad at all. It's like, yeah, you can tolerate it and move around, and actually, it's kind of fun because nobody else is at these places because it's cold. And I actually really enjoy the winter landscapes a lot with all the snow and everything. So, once you get the comfort back, it becomes a lot more fun.
Yep.
So
Definitely third that. Yep.
that's my takeaway there. But I think that's all I got. So let me
And
see.
I think I'm gonna throw it in, but
Yeah.
we should have mentioned it earlier. But if you're out in the cold,
Mhm.
alcohol is not your friend.
Oh, right.
Before,
Yeah.
during, or after, or any drugs to that matter,
Yes.
do not even try that because it creates a sensation that you're warm.
But you're
It
not.
widens the blood vessels, but it makes you lose heat faster and you kind of lose the ability to think critically and really get yourself out of danger when you need to. So, no drugs, no alcohol. If you are planning to do that, do not plan it for the same night.
Yeah.
For
Or
those in legal nights that or legal states that go out on nights as well, that does include marijuana. Yes.
it's like, so all these Aurora chasing, if you're gonna do it, make sure you're in your car, or actually don't do that either, or a passenger in the car.
If you're out Aurora hunting, just go out Aurora hunting. Like,
And just go Aurora hunting.
that's all you need
You
to be
can
doing.
you can
Plan a sober chase.
you can partake when you're done at home.
Exactly. Exactly.
Editing your pictures. Make those
Yep.
really
But
nice edits.
yeah, those two recreations really do not mix very well, particularly when
No.
we're dealing with extreme with temperature extremes. Yeah,
Yeah.
just don't.
Yeah, just don't. It's fine. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I think that's all I have for, at least this is what I go through when I do the cold weather trips. Cameras work just fine. It's just really the batteries that is what you're fighting. So just make sure you keep them warm, and then you should be good. I actually didn't carry extras. I think I usually carry about 6 of them between the two cameras.
Hmm.
So that way, because if one goes, you can just put it in and then warm up the other one because that will bring it back to life a lot of times. So that's the big thing. But yeah, I like that. Yeah, Aurora's a natural high. Yes, it is.
Yay.
It is my drug.
Well said.
Yes, caffeine and theobromine. So caffeine and coffee, theobromine and chocolate.
Yes. So that's all. We're good. But I think that's it. I haven't seen anything else in
Yep.
the chat, so I got reminded of a few things, and it was good. So we can leave you guys for the night. So hopefully, um, got something out of it. And if anything, about the beginning, about how sometimes what we see in L1 isn't quite the response that we expect. So that's fun. But there'll be more. There'll be more Aurora. I'm not. concerned.
Yep.
Go on to the next thing. Well, anyway, we'll let you guys have your night back. Thanks for joining us. Happy New Year, and we'll kind of get back to our regular. I mean, I want to say regular because normally we don't do this on Tuesday either, but we had scheduling conflicts, so
Mhm.
we had to do that. But we'll try to get back to our regular Sundays because it seems like that's what most people like. So until then, have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.